Hello everyone, and thank you all so much for tuning in to this City of Reno Board and Commission Member Training Session. My name is Tyler Shaw, and I serve as the City of Reno's Agenda Manager in the City Manager's Office. My role includes overseeing the Council agenda process and now the administration of boards and commissions under the updated structure. Some of you may know me from my time as a staff liaison to the neighborhood advisory boards, but for those of you meeting or hearing me for the first time, part of my role is to make sure the boards and commissions process runs smoothly and that you have what you need to focus on the issues that matter. This training is for all board and commission members at the City of Reno and for those who may be interested in learning more about boards and commissions. The goal of this training is to ensure that you, as board members, have clear expectations about your roles and practical tools to help you make a difference in our community. I want to start off tonight's training by telling you a little bit more about how you can access all of the resources I'm going to mention here tonight, as well as some other great material. What you see on the slide is a screen grab of our new public-facing board and commission portal. This portal is a one-stop shop for new and current board members to gain general knowledge about boards and commissions, apply for service on a board, or learn more about specific boards. All of the training materials that I'll reference today, along with many more to come in the future, can be found under the Documents tab of the Board Member Resources page. You can also access information about other boards and commissions, such as the membership, vacant positions, as well as upcoming meetings. To give you all a quick rundown of the order we'll be covering things in today's training, I'm going to spend the next few slides covering some important general board and commission topics before finishing out with some specifics on what has changed with the new board and commission resolution. To get us started on some actual board and commission information, I'm a little bit of a government nerd, so I thought it would be good to take a second and explain exactly what our boards and commissions are and why we have them. Our boards and commissions at the City of Reno can be split into two distinct categories: advisory boards and decision-making boards. Advisory boards and committees are usually created by the City Council to gather input from the community on a specific topic and use that input to provide recommendations, not binding decisions, back to the City Council. Our advisory boards are meant to support Council priorities and act as a feedback bridge between the community and the Council. Advisory boards can still take action on items and vote during meetings. However, any decisions they make are usually recommendations to another body, not a final binding decision. For example, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board might vote to approve a change to the Parks Master Plan, but that plan still needs to come back to Council for final approval. The second category our boards fall into is decision-making boards. These are boards that are usually created by the Nevada Revised Statutes, or NRS, or the Reno City Charter. These boards are distinct from advisory boards in that they have final decision-making authority. These decision-making boards often use the input gathered by the advisory boards to help inform their decisions. The majority of the boards which were impacted by the changes in this resolution are advisory boards, not decision-making boards. So with that in mind, let's move on to the next general board and commission topic, one which I'm sure many of you have discussed at your boards individually. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Nevada Open Meeting Law, or OML. So what is the Open Meeting Law? Well, it's an entire chapter of laws in the Nevada Revised Statutes designed to ensure that all meetings of local governments are open and accessible to the public. Fun fact, did you know that the state legislature, which created and enacted the open meeting law, is entirely exempt from its provisions? So what kinds of things does the open meeting law require us local governments to do? Well, meeting agendas must be posted by 9 a.m. at least 3 business days prior to the meeting. Boards cannot take action on an item unless it specifically states for possible action in the title of the item. Discussions and actions during board meetings are limited only to those items which are on the posted agenda. This means if your board meets and deliberates on an issue that it is not agendized to discuss, you could be in violation of open meeting law. Open meeting law also prohibits discussions of the character, alleged misconduct, professional competence, or physical and mental health of any person without proper noticing. So please don't do that. Boards must have a quorum to meet or take action on any items. A quorum is defined by OML as a simple majority of the voting membership of a public body. You can think of this as half plus one. If a board fails to reach a quorum, it must be canceled, even if the agenda has already been posted and everyone else is at the meeting waiting. If a quorum cannot be reached, the meeting cannot happen. Just as it is illegal to take action at a posted meeting where there is no quorum, open meeting law states that having a quorum and making deliberations outside of a properly noticed public meeting is also a violation of open meeting law. This means if a quorum of the Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board happened to attend a training and they decided to start discussing an upcoming development project, they could be violating open meeting law. Open meeting law even prohibits what is known as a walking quorum, wherein a member of a public body might meet with less than a quorum of the board to discuss an issue and then relay those discussions to another sub-quorum group of members, effectively creating a scenario where the members of the board are deliberating outside of a public meeting. Open meeting law even considers email threads where a quorum of the board is included on the email in which deliberation occurs to be a violation of the open meeting law. But does this mean that you can't talk to your other board members outside of a meeting or all attend the same event? No. For an open meeting law violation to occur, there must be a quorum and deliberation. So, for example, if you all wanted to go to a board member training, say, even though there might be a quorum of your board present, as long as there's no deliberation on items currently or reasonably expected to come before the board, there is no violation. Or say you wanted to discuss an item with another board member. As long as you do not deliberate on this item with a quorum, either all at once or serially, there is no violation. Now let's do a quick knowledge check. So we'll go ahead and start with some true or false questions. Number 1, hitting reply all to an email thread with the entire board to tell them you plan to vote no on a project is not a violation of the open meeting law. Do you think this is true or false? False. As I mentioned earlier, hitting reply all to an email thread with the entire board and deliberating in that email thread is in fact a violation of the open meeting law. Let's try another one. Going to a community cleanup with the entire NAB but not talking about any board business is not a violation of the open meeting law. I'll give you a second to shout out your answer. True. Even though there might be a quorum of your neighborhood advisory board, as long as you're not talking about board business or deliberating on anything, you are not in violation of open meeting law. Next, I want to talk about public records, which are created and governed by Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 239. This section of NRS dictates what records are classified as public records. So, when is something considered to be part of the public record? Well, any document, email, text, calendar entry, or note created or received in connection with public business is considered by the state of Nevada to be a public record. This even includes board-related business sent on personal devices or accounts if used for board matters. What does it mean if something is classified as a public record? That means it can be requested and viewed by a member of the public at any time. Some examples of public records include board applications and appointment documents, anything you send to City of Reno employees via city email, Teams chat, or cell phone is automatically captured as part of the public record. Notes taken during board meetings, drafts or handwritten, any reports, exhibits, or documents introduced into the record by yourselves or by members of the public. Best practice is to keep personal and public business separate where possible, and when in doubt, assume that it is a public record. So now let's do a public records knowledge check. True or false? Notes you take during a board meeting, even if handwritten, can be considered a public record. shout out your answers. True. Nevada Revised Statutes considers everything created in relation to your position as a board member to be a public record. This can include handwritten notes. Number 2. Only documents created using a city-issued email account count as public records. True or false? False. Like I mentioned just a second ago, any document created in relation to public business, regardless of whether or not it's on a personal or city-issued device or email account, is considered part of the public record. Now let's talk about Robert's Rules of Order. The most common question I get on this is, who's Robert? Well, he was just a guy in the 1800s who liked rules so much he wrote an entire book about them. His Book of Rules has become one of the most widely used parliamentary procedures in the United States. So what do his rules do? Well, they provide a structure to help meetings stay fair, efficient, and orderly. For example, they require all action to be taken via a motion, coming from a board member, which then has to be seconded by another board member who agrees with the motion, before discussion, and then finally a vote of the board. This structure is highly suited to the maintenance of quality public records. Another best practice in minute and record keeping is to make sure you always state your name before speaking. This will help ensure an accurate record of the meeting. Robert's Rules also helps maintain order and fairness by mandating that there only be one speaker at a time and that members must be recognized by the chair before speaking to help prevent one member from taking up all the discussion time or talking over other quieter members. I want to take a second to address some feedback we received about the use of Robert's Rules of Order related to a perceived inability to create consensus decision making. Robert's Rules is not just yes/no voting. Most agenda items are noticed with multiple possible outcomes. Amendments, substitutes, or deferrals can be proposed and voted on. This creates space for compromise and refinement before a final vote. Compromise happens in the process, not in the rulebook. Board members can negotiate and modify motions before a vote. Chairs can allow discussion and amendments to ensure minority views are heard. Whether compromise occurs depends on the people running the meeting, not on the system. Now we're going to shift gears from general board and commission background information to specific changes as a result of recent council actions. Before I start listing off some of the really great changes council made, I think it's important that we all have a common understanding about why these changes were necessary. Our boards at the City of Reno were established one by one over the course of many decades by NRS, Reno Municipal Code, and many different council resolutions. These myriad governance mechanisms created a fragmented system which was disconnected from council's strategic priorities and extremely difficult to accurately administer. As a result of these challenges, in November of 2024, Council directed staff to bring forward a comprehensive overhaul of the city's board and commission program. After extensive research into our internal issues and into best practices across the state and the country, staff brought forward a series of recommendations to Council for consideration in the summer of 2025. After some adjustments by Council, a new resolution and series of ordinances were adopted at the August 13, 2025 City Council meeting, which removed some of our advisory boards from the Reno Municipal Code and a series of other conflicting resolutions and combined them all into a single resolution, which also created a new section of general governance provisions. Among many other things, these general governance provisions will help ensure our boards and commissions function under a consistent and efficient set of rules moving forward. So now that we're all on the same page, let's get into some specifics about what's changing. Starting with which boards were affected and which boards were not affected by this new resolution. Boards affected by the resolution include the Access Advisory Board, Arts and Culture Advisory Board, Community Development Block Grant Subcommittee, Financial Advisory Board, Neighborhood Advisory Boards, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Senior Resident Advisory Board, Urban Forestry Commission, and the Youth City Council. Some of the boards which were not affected by the resolution include the Planning Commission, Civil Service Commission, Historic Resources Commission, Charter Commission, and any other board or committee or commission established by NRS, Reno City Charter, or interlocal agreement. I'm going to try and cover some of these resolution changes with all of you in the order that they appear in the signed resolution. I have included section references after each change so you can refer back to the actual resolution language if you have any questions. And again, this resolution can be accessed at reno.gov/boards under the Documents tab of the Board Member Resources page. Starting out in sections 1 and 2, the administration of the Boards and Commissions program has been moved out of the City Clerk's office and into the office of the City Manager within the Agenda Management program. This is just an administrative change to consolidate responsibility for Council, Planning Commission, Neighborhood Advisory Boards, and all of our other boards and commissions within a single office for increased oversight and accountability. Now, moving to Section 7, this resolution finally defines the difference between a commission, a board, and a committee. Commissions are boards which have final decision-making authority, like the Planning Commission. Boards are advisory bodies only, which are meant to continue in perpetuity. And a committee is now defined as a time-bound, single-purpose entity which is automatically dissolved once it has achieved its stated goals. Now that these different entities are finally defined in a concrete way, staff also recommended adjusting the names of some boards which did not previously fit into this definition structure. Moving to Section 8, the new resolution mandates that for all affected boards, there shall be a 2 consecutive term limit, which must be followed by a mandatory 1-year break in service before being eligible for reappointment, unless otherwise directed by the council liaison to the board. Section 9 establishes that boards may set their own regular meeting schedule or may meet on an as-needed basis. This same section also caps all boards at a maximum of 12 meetings per year unless otherwise directed by council to meet more frequently. Skipping ahead a little to Section 19, this section outlines the City of Reno's media policy for members of boards and commissions affected by the resolution. This resolution states that members of boards and commissions and committees are not authorized to issue public statements, speak to the media, or represent the city or position of the body to which they are appointed in any external communications without prior approval from the city manager's office. Inquiries from the press related to board work should be referred to the staff liaison to the board. Members, of course, may speak to the media in your capacity as private individuals, but you must make it clear that your views are your own and do not reflect the position of the City of Reno or the board, commission, or committee to which you are appointed. Going back in order, Section 10 provides that any member who has more than 3 unexcused absences within a single year will be automatically removed from their respective board, commission, or committee unless otherwise directed by the council liaison to the board. This policy was created in response to experiences with some boards that faced ongoing absenteeism, which unfortunately kept them from meeting for many months at a time. This does not mean that you cannot ever miss a meeting. It simply means that if you know you will be unable to attend, we ask that you let both the chair and the staff liaison know and provide as much advance notice as possible. We fully understand that life happens and sometimes absences cannot be avoided or predicted. When absences become frequent without notice, it can create challenges for the board's work and place extra strain on everyone's time. Because a quorum is required for every board meeting, if a member indicates they will attend and then they have to cancel at the last minute, the meeting may no longer be able to proceed. This results not only in lost time for fellow board members and staff, but also in wasted effort preparing and posting the agenda. For these reasons, it is very important that you give as much notice as you can if you will need to miss a meeting. This is especially true for boards like the Planning Commission, which require extensive advance public noticing and staff and public coordination. Section 10 also establishes that board members who fail to participate constructively or complete any assigned trainings may be removed from the board by the council liaison. Finally, Section 10 requires that all resignations be sent to the staff liaison of the board in writing. Up next, this is one of the biggest changes in the new structure. Every board affected by the resolution will now have a board secretary. Their role is a critical piece of the updated system because they handle quorum checks, minute creation, and annual reports. Minutes are required under Nevada open meeting law, and they must include the date, time, and place of the meeting, who was present or absent, substance of all matters proposed, discussed, or decided, motions and how each member voted, public comments if requested to be included, or written comments if they're submitted. Currently, the City of Reno is paying outside vendors upwards of $300 per meeting for some boards just to have minutes prepared. This adds up to thousands of dollars per year. By shifting to the board secretary model, we save taxpayer dollars while keeping minute taking closer to the actual discussion. As board members, you are more in tune to the discussions and votes that are happening in your boards than most contract minute takers would be. Another important aspect of a board member's service as the secretary is the creation of the annual report, which will be created from a standard template, summarizing the work of the board over the previous year and the board's alignment with the city's overarching strategic goals. Your service as a board secretary will be a partnership with your staff liaison and your fellow board members to determine the best methods for minute creation, as well as the level of support needed for the creation of the annual report. I have provided a minute-taking cheat sheet with examples to all of the staff liaisons to provide to whoever is selected as the board secretary in the coming months. Continuing on with changes in the resolution, Section 12 requires all affected boards to adopt new bylaws in conformance with the city's standard bylaws template. So some of you will start seeing these bylaw review and adoption items on your board agendas in the next few months. It is important to note that nothing in these bylaws can conflict with the provisions of this resolution. There is a section at the end of the template for board-specific changes or additions. For example, a board could add or change their meeting frequency. They may choose to meet monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, or on an as-needed basis. They can add additional content to be included in the annual report as prepared by the board secretary. They can add additional board-specific clauses in conformance with the scope and authority established by the resolution. Boards cannot change or add anything that conflicts with the provisions of the resolution. This includes things like more stringent eligibility requirements than those laid out in the resolution, requiring more than 12 meetings per year, or changing the role of the board secretary. Section 14 outlines that no board may create subcommittees without prior authorization from the City Council. Sections 15 and 16 create an annual reporting structure as well as a 5-year performance review structure. Starting with the annual reporting requirement, all boards in this resolution are now required to submit an annual report to the City Council via council memo before July 1st of each year. This report will be created by the board secretary in partnership with the staff liaison to the board, as well as the rest of the board members. The report will be based on a standard template for all boards and commissions, so there will not be any work needed to format a document or create a report from scratch. You will mostly just be working with your board to fill in the language. These reports are required to include specific recommendations of the board to the City Council, which are in alignment with the city's strategic plan and the scope of the board. The report must also include a summary of the board's activities over the previous year, as well as a record of meeting schedules and member attendance from the previous year. Neighborhood advisory boards are exempt from the requirement to produce annual reports. We'll cover that in greater detail in another training. Like I mentioned at the start of this training, before this resolution, the boards did not have a formal way to channel recommendations to the Reno City Council. These annual reports fill that gap and are now the formal mechanism by which boards can communicate their priorities to council. Moving on to the 5-year performance review structure, Council is now required to review the performance of each affected board at a Council meeting at least once every 5 years. This performance review will consist of a review of all previous annual reports, alignment with current policy needs, attendance and participation metrics, effectiveness of recommendations, required staff resources, public engagement levels, redundancy with other boards, commissions, or committees, and will be the primary method by which Council considers and acts upon structural adjustments to individual boards. These reviews are the way Council will communicate their priorities back to the boards and commissions and ensure that the work of the board remains connected to their strategic priorities. Thank you everyone for watching today's training. That's everything I wanted to cover. If you have any questions about anything you saw, feel free to look at reno.gov/boards for more information, or you can contact Callie Shai, who's an agenda coordinator with the City of Reno, at shyc@reno.gov or 775-895-9019. Thank you so much.